Hello, everyone. Today we will be talking about test maintenance and how to deal with test maintenance in general. And specifically how testRigor will help your test maintenance challenges. And for that, let me start from the reason for the test maintenance. For multiple reasons why there are test maintenance. There are some issues with potentially test data or test setup. There are issues related to functionality actually changing, which causes to update the test if it's actually a big breaking change. And finally, there are issues related to details of implementation changes. And great news is testRigor can help you with test data and details of implementation challenges. It will help you to make your test cases as stable as it's technically possible on the level of how you would get those in something like manual testing. So the promise of testRigor is that if it works for you as a manual test, testRigor test will also be free. As a reminder, testRigor is a human emulator where you can write in English what needs to be done, and testRigor understands it and runs those tests from end user's perspective. Like emulating how human would do it. So now, without further ado, let me do a demo. Let me share my screen. All right, here we go. And let us create a very simple test. And I'll show you exactly how you'll be able to save time on test maintenance and address different challenges. So let's go to google.com and let's create a test suite for google.com. And let's keep automated tests. Create a scene, okay. Great. So now let's start from helping ourselves to speed up first test creation. And I will explain to you that it is not the fastest way of building tests, actually. But for us in this particular situation, it might be. So let's search for testRigor. Yep. And let's click Google search. And let's validate that this page would contain testRigor.com. All right. So this is Google search test. Let's create a description, validate search, and let's make sure we just search for testRigor.com. We don't need anything else. Add and run. And we get back. This is our test case. And it's not going to run in there because we didn't click Google search. So let's do exactly that. Let's click search. Okay. So basically, what's going on here is testRigor starts a new browser. It loads the URL, which is specified when you created the test suite, and then it executes your instructions, emulating how user would execute those. In particular, it enters testRigor and clicks search. And on the next screen, it will highlight where it validated. So how exactly is testRigor helping to improve test maintenance? And it actually helps to reduce amount of maintenance related to dealing with details of implementation or changing details of implementation, because it does not rely on details of implementation. So you are specifying the steps purely from end user's perspective, and therefore there is no the details of implementation involved, and therefore it will be stable. In this particular case, as soon as there is a search input, which could be found, it doesn't matter whatever name or anything like that in there, and there is button containing search, in this case Google search, it will work and it will do the sensible thing. As you can see, even though we use search in both cases, when we inputting data, it knows to use the input, because when you input data, the assumption is you input it into the search, and when you're clicking on something, it will prioritize something that is clickable first, because the assumption is if you want to click on something, that should be clickable, and most probably would be a button or something like that. It could be a tag or any div which is clickable. And this is what we did in here. And we also highlighted validation will only work with visible elements or potentially visible. It will scroll automatically for you until it is visible. And it will highlight it for you to make sure that you can visually validate that it is not false positive. This is exactly what you wanted to validate and not something else. Okay. Now, basically, this is all great. How about more complex scenarios? And here is a far more complex scenario where, as you can see, this is a complex page where, first of all, some of the icons do not have text, visible text where you can rely on alternative texts, whatever is come up with hover over, or you can rely on machine learning based image classification, which will classify this icon as a card, this as a user, and so on. You can say things like click card and such. And as you can see here, it is more complex because it has two identical update buttons. So how would you click on this one and not on that one? There are multiple ways how you can do it. You can say things like click on the second update, click on update and change your password section, click on a second update in account settings section, and so on and so forth. So anything you can express from an user's perspective, testRigor should be able to parse and execute for you. So this way, basically, as you can see, you're expressing it from a business perspective, the way it should work for an end user. And by avoiding any kind of details of implementation there whatsoever, you making it order of magnitude more stable. And also you can say things like enter Jane into first name, where first name is some text that look like a label in here, and where it is not necessarily a label, but it will still work because it looks like one. You can also say enter product into search products, and you can easily work with tables with testRigor and say things like click on erase on a row containing SPK2 and column actions, or click on the second button, and so on and so forth. So basically, you are expressing things how it should work from a user's perspective, and no matter what implementation is, it could be table-based rendering today and div-based rendering tomorrow. testRigor will be executing your steps purely from a user's perspective, therefore making your tests stable and saving you from rewriting, in some cases, your tests. If, for example, this rendering change from table to div, and going and basic saving enormous amount of time. So you don't have to attend to your test every time engineers roll out some minor changes in rendering. So anyway, so this is how it works from testability perspective. Now let's talk about test data. Well, of course, you can specify some test data where you can create data sets and have data-driven testing, and you can also upload CSVs to create data sets, and so on and so forth. But we will talk about a little bit more simple use case where we would want to use something auto-generated. For that, you can click on documentation icon in here. And if you scroll down, you can see generate as an example. And let's say, let's generate the unique name like that. And let's make it a negative test, right? Let's, instead of entering testRigor, let's generate some unique data, enter it into search, and then click search. However, page will no longer contain testRigor.com because this is some kind of a random name. So we should test exactly that. Checkout page does not contain testRigor.com. Let's update and retest. And basically what's going on is testRigor server is picking up the job, starting the browser, loading the landing page, and so on. And where we go, as you can see, it doesn't, like we search for random string, it doesn't contain testRigor.com on this page, which is exactly what is expected. So point being is this is how you can work with dynamic data and generate unique data every single time you need it, and then it stores as a variable so you can refer to this data going forward later. Now, on top of it, you can also deal with email-based signups, and you can generate unique email and use that email to sign up and get the email from it, and so on and so forth. But point being is it's very easy, as you can see, to generate unique data every single time you run the application, and that data is guaranteed to be unique. All right. On that, this is all what I would love to share today. So point being, to reiterate once again, testRigor solves the problem of test maintenance by helping you to easily work with auto-generated data and by working purely from end user's perspective, not relying on details of implementation at all whatsoever, therefore keeping your test as stable as possible, and everybody can chime in and understand and contribute to the test because we are all in plain English. Thank you very much.